All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Island Time. This one was a very special episode. We got the chance to do a podcast with Michelle Corfield, who is the Liberal Party of Canada candidate for Nanaimo and Ladysmith. So this episode is all about her. But to be clear, we have reached out to every candidate and we're hoping to get them all on. We may or may not be able to just due to scheduling. So we were able to get Michelle on this podcast and it was awesome. So this is not about pushing anybody's political views or parties onto anybody. This is strictly to get to know the candidates and just to get to know their personalities a little bit better.
Yeah, and we thought it was a great idea. Like sometimes in election season, you see their posters all over town and whatnot, and you obviously know the policies of the parties online. You can find that information easily. But this is more of like just getting to know the people as individual people and what they've done and their accomplishments, and just have a nice casual conversation. So yeah, hope you all like it and enjoy the episode.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Island Time. Today we have a very special guest. She has a doctorate in organizational leadership management from the University of Phoenix, a master's in conflict analysis and management from Royal Roads University. She took her Bachelor of Arts right here at VIU. She founded Corfield and Associates, a consulting firm that specializes in engagement, facilitation, strategic planning, and organizational development for First Nations. She's a leader and an entrepreneur. Without further ado, Michelle Corfield, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, guys. I'm so excited to be here. It feels like home. Spent quite a few years up here at the campus, and luckily the theater's still here and looks amazing.
Yeah. Did you go here when it was Malaspina, or was it actually VIU?
I was here when it was Malaspina, and I finished my degree when it became Malaspina University College.
Oh,
Very cool.
wow. So did you do Bachelor of Arts then?
I have a Bachelor of First Nation Studies.
Oh,
Okay.
cool. Nice.
Now, I started on the sociology, psychology, anthropology vein and finished in First Nation Studies.
Cool.
Very cool.
So I guess, Michelle, like a little bit about like how you got to where you are today. Like maybe tell us and like some of the viewers like kind of your life journey and like what got you to where you are running for the elections this year.
Well, it's been a long, storied history. So I was raised right here in Nanaimo. Accidentally born in Port Alberni in a snowstorm in 1968. But I went to school here, Georgia Avenue, Harewood School, John Barsby, NDSS, and then finally up here at Malaspina. So I kind of got here in ways that probably are not traditional, right? I started my first business at 18. And then was still going to school and trying to get a degree and trying to figure out who I was and where I wanted to be and what were the opportunities. And back in those days, they kept saying, we're going to run out of teachers. All the baby boomers are going to retire. Well, I think we're 30 plus years and I'm still waiting for the baby boomers to retire. So that didn't pan out well. And then I went off and did a bunch of other things before we became a university. And once we became a university here, I actually, and Dr. Umik Richard Atleo had started the First Nations program. It was at the same time that we were seeing 1993 in the BC treaty process. And I'd been called to work for my nation in the treaty process. And so it was only fitting that I would come to school and get a degree in First Nation studies. And I was one of these people that was accepted because I wasn't a part of the whole program. I had just kind of jumped in the last 2 years. And so I was accepted in, and I think I still hold the highest grade for
Cool.
the final exam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So it was kind of cool. So that's how I got back into how I got rooted in what I was doing. I was doing a few entrepreneurial things before that. And then came back to school, got my degree, and then went right back in, and all the time working in the treaty process. So I have been working in the treaty process since 1993, and got a master's in 2000, I guess. And then I got my PhD in 2007. So you can see I just went to school, and I worked full time, had kids. My son at that time was an extremely competitive BMX racer, which I'll talk about later when we talk about the Steve Smith Foundation, because I hope you ask me about that. And so that was my segue into where I am today, sort of, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I am one of the only people that have actually implemented a modern day treaty. I was the chair of the legislature for Ucluelet First Nation after implementation. I've seen a treaty from start to finish. I continue to work in that space and advancing stage 5 negotiations for One Nation, Subasset. And yeah, and then other than that, my practice, I've had a very diverse practice. I've owned at the same time, I owned a seafood harvesting business, right? Fishing business, harvesting gooey ducks.
Wow.
So I spent a
Busy.
lot of time in the gooey duck industry and was on the Underwater Harvesters Association board for a long time. So they always reach out during election time
Mm-hmm.
to see what we're doing and how are we protecting the commercial fisheries. I yeah, I initiated a Marine roundtable because at the time when Christy Clark was premier, she talked about how we needed to have a world-class safety, and nobody was really doing anything about it. And so then I got all my friends, the pilots and everybody together, and we created the roundtable, which actually heavily influenced the Ocean Protection Plan. So I've done all kinds of things, right?
That's
College of Physicians
wonderful.
and Surgeons.
Yeah.
We can talk about that one. I was that was I want to thank Gordon Campbell for that, because he was the one that made me start looking at different public sector boards.
Yeah.
And so I was appointed to the College of Physicians and Surgeons. And at that time I thought I was really out of my depth. But I got to do some very exciting work there. I was the first lay person, meaning non-medical doctor, to chair registration for doctors. So if we
Wow.
want to talk about a doctor shortage, I know why. I know how we can fix it. And and some of the stumbling blocks that we've run into. But the best parts of that were I got to be a part of the committees that seen the guidelines and principles and drafted for medical assistance in dying,
Yep.
and also medical marijuana.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are
Cool.
some of those things.
So, Michelle, like you talked a little bit about your journey there, and you mentioned you started, was it municipal, and then you went provincial, and now federal? Is that kind of your journey, or
No, I've
did you go
never
direct to federal politics like right away?
direct to federal.
Wow. So, what kind of prompted you to go in that direction? Is it where your interests lie, like federal policies, or how
Yeah.
did you discover that?
How did I discover it? So you guys are too young to remember, but there was a cartoon when I was a kid, a bill, how to make a bill. And it was how to pass a bill in the United States. It's this little cartoon.
Okay, I'll
And-
check it out. Actually,
And so when I talk about what got me interested and how I kind of stumbled on where I'm going, that was it. So that's the foundational principles about what got me interested in politics.
okay.
And then lo and behold, back in my day when you went to elementary school, you helped your local alderman knock doors and hand out flyers.
Yeah, for sure.
So
There wasn't any of this social media nonsense we have going on now.
no, you had a truckload of kids, no
Yeah.
seatbelts, running door to door, handing out flyers.
Yeah.
So we handed out, my friends and I handed out flyers for Jack Little, an alderman.
Okay.
'Cause there was no city council. It was called alderman, and you had a representative of your area.
Was that here in this
Here in
community?
Nanaimo,
Oh,
here in
wow.
Harewood, down the
Wow.
street.
Wow, that's cool. And Nanaimo would have looked way different back
Yeah.
then than it does today, too.
So and at that time as well in elementary school, you really learned about politics. You learned about federal politics and you learned about provincial politics. So it was a part of the curriculum. I don't know if it still is, but this
Yeah.
isn't about grade 4.
Okay.
And so you get really fired up about that. And at that time, of course, we had no social media. The mayors would come and talk to you. The aldermen would come and talk to you, and you'd get all excited about it.
Yeah, no, totally. I seem to remember, I don't know about you, Sean, but I seem to remember not much political discussions in my schooling. I was born in 1996, so I would have been elementary school through the early 2000s, and I don't seem to remember too many discussions going
No,
on.
nothing.
Yeah, so
I didn't learn anything about it in
I
high
di-
school.
and
Nothing.
I think it's coming back. Like
I hope so.
I think more
Yeah.
young people are getting involved in conversations now, which I think is kind of the point of this, right? Is to have a conversation and just get people more aware of it's an important part of life, right?
Yeah.
It's an important part of being a Canadian.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So it's our charter rights, it's our constitutional rights as Canadians to vote. We have a democracy. And I'm going to back this up a bit. So I take pride in that democracy.
Hmm.
But I am New Chalmouth. We were denied the right to vote. We were denied our own governance systems. I come from a chieftainship family. We don't have a democratic system. We have a hereditary system. So there is no choosing the leader. The leader is born.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I had a passion as a child, right? Remember that cartoon?
Yep.
You can Google it. I know it's out
I
there.
will be.
You
Yeah.
guys get on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then I had that deep understanding of politics as a part of my curriculum. So where we have probably failed many of our Canadian citizens is in our inability to communicate about what it means to be Canadian and how your participation in elections is critically important.
Yeah.
So I think we better look at this, because if you're telling me you didn't see this and you didn't learn this in school, where are you supposed to learn this?
Mhm.
How are you as a young Canadian supposed to understand what it means to participate in democracy? Because nothing is the same as it was when my parents started out, right? Remember, they barely had rotary telephones.
Yeah.
Indoor plumbing was still a novelty. So
Yeah.
we're a
it's
little
true.
bit beyond that, but
Yeah.
we really have left, I think, a whole segment of our population behind and not really embraced what it means to be Canadian and have the opportunity to vote.
Yeah.
Because I come from, like I say it, I'm New Chalmouth. We did not have the right to vote.
Right.
But as a woman, I also did not have the right to vote until the 50s. So
Mhm.
1951 was a critical year. So we're just 70 years past that. It's
Not
still
long.
there.
Yeah.
People,
It's, yeah.
my mother-in-law is still alive, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So
Well, this is going to be my second federal election coming up.
right on.
And I would say that my education on politics is pretty elementary. And I could probably speak for a lot of people our age out there when I say that. So one of the biggest things for me was even knowing to register to vote. Like, these things were never taught to me growing up in high school. And what would you say to, the young voters out there?
This is your time. Our country is under attack. The sovereignty of Canada is at risk. We need you and we need your vote. There is no time. This is the most important election of my lifetime, and it probably will be the most important election of your lifetime. And when I just left my granddaughter, I just dropped her off, and I said, I'm going to work because I need to make a better world for you. And so that's what I'm doing. And if I can influence one person to register to vote, then I've done a great job, in my opinion, right?
Yeah,
It's
totally.
about one person helping one person or telling two people. We have to get the word out. This is the most important election of our lifetime. Our country is at war. And the war that we're fighting is to protect who we are as Canadians and those values and principles that we believe and hold on to. It's okay to say I'm sorry,
Yeah, totally.
right?
Well, you mentioned the countries at like war right now and protecting our Canada as it is. Tell us a little bit more about that, and maybe educate the viewers on some of the stuff that's going on related to tariffs. Like, some people just don't understand. So maybe tell them a bit about that and why it's important we stand up for who we are as people.
Okay. I'm going to take you a little bit farther back to understand sovereignty from my perspective.
Okay,
So,
cool.
and I'm going to say that because I said in 1993, I was called home to work for my people. I come from Wickaninish, Chief Wickaninish, one of the war chiefs of the Barkley Sound, at war for hundreds of years between ourselves. And at that time, they were fighting for rivers and streams and access to resources. There's nothing different in those actions of that war chief at that time between the Huayet and the Uqulit, access to resources, protecting their land. So if you take that micro, in this instance, that micro war, and you apply it more broadly, sovereignty. So we've been fighting for sovereignty for since 1776 when Captain Cook came. So First Nations have been fighting for sovereignty within Canada to be recognized and seen.
Yeah,
So
totally.
you just take that micro thought and apply it macroly.
Mm.
Canada fought for its sovereignty and its freedom from Britain, right? We were part of the Commonwealth. Britain, was the ruler, and all along, I hope you guys had social studies.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite subjects, actually.
And so in that, how Canada was built, one province at a time.
Yep.
With British Columbia coming last into Confederation. And Vancouver Island was a colony at one time.
Yeah.
So we've built this country based on good relationships with, I would say, the settler. But what we didn't do is we didn't build good relationships with our First Nations. We actually treated them very badly, and we continue to do so. We have the Indian Act, which governs First Nations. So we got to do some work around that.
Totally.
But what I'm trying to get my point on this is for everybody to understand, sovereignty can be seen as you're trying to protect what you fought for already. And we fought for this country to be this vast, this big, and have these values and principles. And when these values and principles are under attack, you are under attack as Canadians. So how did those tariffs play? Those tariffs, I don't shop online, but if you start ordering online stuff, it's going to cost you more money. Where you're going to see that tariff is in the price of milk, in the price of cheese, in the price of meat, and anything that comes inside to our country is going to be tariffed. So therefore, the cost of goods is going to go up. So everything, and it's probably a question later, but I'll talk about it now. Because we have failed to protect ourselves and we've always been free trading with our neighbor, we have not built our secondary and tertiary industries, right? We haven't built our manufacturing industries. We haven't invested in those things because we could get those goods perhaps cheaper somewhere else, right? Than it would cost for us to do here. So Canada's been exporting raw materials, primary minerals, primary wood, primary everything, and not refining it and not taking it through the value chain.
Right.
So that's what we've got to start doing. It's a little protectionist. Should we have been doing it all along? Absolutely. And we I'm going to say we didn't have our eye on the prize. Right? We kind of just got complacent because that's kind of how we are.
Yeah.
We're Canadian. It's okay.
Yeah.
So we haven't had a good battle for a while. I think it's a good wake-up call. It's certainly bringing our youth along.
I've never seen this many young people engaging in these conversations.
And that's exciting to me because we have to shake things up sometimes.
Yeah.
We have to create a little bit of chaos to get some clarity.
Yeah.
Sure.
So as much as I know it's going to hurt in the short term, I believe Mark Carney and his vision for Canada will bring us through. And I'll use this analogy because I know it's coming and people will go, well, what's different about this Liberal Party opposed to the Trudeau Liberal Party? I'm going to say this. Everybody's a hockey fan. I'm a hockey fan. That's my team.
Oh, you like the Oilers?
I love the Oilers. I chased that cup last year. So sometimes if you play hockey, sometimes the players are great, but you need a new coach. In this instance, we got a new coach and he needs new players.
Need a new goalie.
Yes, we do need a new goalie. The young guy that started out 2 days ago wasn't too bad, though.
Yeah, that's
I thought
true.
he did a good job.
Yeah.
I really did. I watched that game very closely.
This is a great analogy.
So I'm trying to make it so I can appeal to, I don't need to speak up here, but really, so we got a new coach. Our coach is Mark Carney.
Yep.
Mark Carney brought England out of Brexit. They should never have left the European Union, in my opinion, but I'm not British, so I don't know. But he did a good job of that. He managed our Bank of Canada extremely well through 2008 and all of the things that he has done. His resume is lengthy. His accomplishments for keeping people safe are great. So he's the coach I can get behind. That's why I chose to run again, because the coach is great and I can make a great addition to his team.
Yeah, the roster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I don't know if I'm a left winger or a defenseman, but I'm going to be on the team.
Yeah,
My skating's a little shaky.
Yeah. And well, I was going to ask you though. So, you said you're running under Mark Carney's team. How do you choose, like as a politician, you're getting into that. How do you choose the party you want to run for? Just in general, how does that work? Like, what's the behind the scenes of that?
So for me, being an Indigenous woman, having suffered all kinds of racism, even yesterday, I was under attack in a racist way, and I'm like, thought we were in 2025.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to look deeply because I actually was asked by the Conservatives and the NDP to run for them.
Yeah, I've heard that there's a lot of this, like behind the scenes, like.
So, and Elizabeth May probably would have taken me in a heartbeat. She's a good friend, seen her in Haida Gwaii this summer. So I chose based on my values and my principles. And so, because I've ran before and people go, well, how? Because the values and principles of the Liberal Party are the values and principles that I see myself as an Indigenous woman being able to be in. And I am allowed to be me. I am not putting on any pretense.
Right.
I don't have to go, oh, is that the right thing to say? No. Nobody's sitting here going, Michelle, you're not allowed to do that, or you need to stick to the party lines. No, because I am completely aligned in what I call, which I don't understand, I don't have the English word, klimaksti. It's right into my DNA. It's in my blood to be this way. So that's why I'm a Liberal.
No, makes total sense.
So when you're choosing those things, you have to look at yourself, right?
Yeah.
Really self-analyze about what is it that you value and what you believe is as a human, and then what party embodies that. So that's how you can that's how I felt I could get in and represent the Liberal Party.
No, absolutely.
And I mean, I've grown up in a time where, at 18 years old, I knew I was a Liberal. I knew when I went to the ballot for the first time and voted for Jean Chrétien.
Yeah.
So that's how.
Yeah, makes sense.
So what about for those voters that it's not as clear for them? Where do they find their information? What's the best way to go about deciding who to vote for, how to do this? Because for me, myself, it's, social media, sometimes Googling, but what's the most reliable source that we can depend on?
Well, this is hard, right? Clickbait. I get caught in that trap. I see the headline and I look, and then I'm down a path. Then my daughter's like, Mom, get out of that now. So I'm not the social media expert. I love the BlackBerry, just so you know, like that was my kind of era of technology.
Legendary Canadian company.
Yes, it was right here in BC.
Yeah.
Bring it back. Bring it back. What I would say is first start out with understanding the parties and their values and principles, right? Because if you can see yourself in that space, then you're able to look a little bit farther out. Then you're going to look at the leader, right? The leader, although you're not electing the leader, you're electing the individual in your riding, but much of this is all geared on that leader. And so there's that component. And then you need to look at the person in your riding. And does that person, have the gravitas to do the job that you want them to do for you?
Yeah.
Are they, Google me, see all the things that I've done, right? Like I'm pretty much an open book.
Yeah.
So, and my resume stands by itself. I say what I do what I say, hard on facts, light on people. That's my entire practice. So I think that's how you do it. It's like, go dig it a little bit.
Yeah.
Do a
little research. Not just
if
going to
you
be
were
given to you.
buying a car, so this is for my youthful voters. If you were out to buy a car, you want to know what's under that car's hood. You want to know what kind of suspension that car has. You want to know what the gas mileage of that car is going to be. You would spend all kinds of time looking to see what kind of car you want. I want a 1968 Camaro Remont, just so you know.
Okay. If anyone's out there, Michelle's looking.
I'm looking for. So that's what I would do, right?
Yeah.
Like you guys
Most things, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys, you guys have the world at your fingertips.
True.
You're not going over there and looking up the Dewey Decimal System.
No. Yeah.
Okay. When I went to that library, we actually seen books and you
Yeah.
had to go through cards. You
Yeah.
guys don't have to do that anymore. You have
No.
phones, you have access to information all day long.
Yeah.
So make sure it's good information. Make sure it's trusted source information. Don't get dragged into the vitriol of what's out there. I feel bad for you guys because you're inundated with a bunch of nonsense.
Totally.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
While we're on the clickbait topic, it's kind of wild how much is out there. Just taking little clips here and there and pulling it out of context and then creating this whole new story. And as a politician, that's got to happen a lot. And how do you kind of cope with that? Like, is that mentally tough to deal with?
So I learned a long time ago, don't read the comments.
Okay. Yeah,
Don't read
that's
the
true.
comments.
Yeah.
There's no value in that. There's no value in putting yourself through. And I see that in some of my other friends, right, that have very high profile jobs. It's like, just don't go to the comments. And AI, it's playing a lot of tricks on people
Yeah.
and it's doing a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of bots and there's a lot of just really do yourself a favor and do the research.
Yeah.
Go to some trusted sites, find some good information. Don't believe everything you read.
Yeah.
And I think you'll be okay. And if you're really curious, you can even phone somebody,
Yeah.
phone a friend, phone somebody that might have had a personal interaction,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Talk to your peers, get more
Yeah.
involved. I think that's one thing too, is just promoting more positive conversations around the topic.
Yeah.
These days people seem to fall into the emotional trigger trap so fast, which is so sad, because it's okay. The world would be boring, in my opinion, if everyone had the same view. So
Yeah.
we should celebrate our differences and be able to talk about them. Kind of moving forward, I wanted to ask you, Michelle, a little bit about at the federal level, there's seats all across the entire country, but if you successfully win Nanaimo Ladysmith, how does that work? How do you represent our community at the federal level?
Well, how would I represent
Yeah,
the
you
community?
can take your perspective on that.
So my perspective on that is, I'm lucky. I've been around for a long time. I've done a long things. I could be an extremely valuable asset to the team, to Team Canada, right? To Team Mark Carney.
Yeah.
I know that. So I have a deep understanding of international trade. I have a deep understanding of port and port infrastructure. I have a deep understanding of environmental concerns. I mean, I've influenced environmental policy for 10 years now that I think about it. And of course, I have a deeply rooted understanding of Indigenous issues and what it means to have 633 First Nations across Canada. We have 204 in BC. We have 55 on Vancouver Island. Those are not easy conversations. So when Mark Carney says it's going to be a core of the mandate throughout, reconciliation is going to be a core of the mandate, it's time Canada stepped up and had full reconciliation. We've seen parts of reconciliation, but there's way more work to do. You don't correct a 150-year-old relationship overnight.
No.
It takes time. So we've got time. So how do I represent Nanaimo Ladysmith? I have done a good job, in my opinion, in the work that I've already done for Nanaimo Ladysmith. And so I served 9 years on the port in Nanaimo. I was a chair of port in Nanaimo. We just finally, after 5 years, because it takes time, announced the port expansion, a $200 million investment into Port in Nanaimo for short sea shipping. So we can actually reduce our carbon footprint, increase our port of calls for ships here, and get goods into the lower mainland past the port man. That is economic development at its root. What I also will say is you can just look at the port. You've got WCMRC, you've got Hullo Ferry.
Yeah.
That was a long, drawn out negotiation to ensure that service would be provided, would be consistent, right? 2 ships.
Yeah.
So there's lots of work that's been done behind the scenes that I'm very proud of. I will also say you can look at the Steve Smith Bike Park. So that stems from the Steve Smith Foundation, which I'm the founder of. We built that Pike Park. Now you have an Olympic qualifying track in the BMX track. So now you can invite more. So these are things that I've done unelected. Colliery Dams, I was asked by the city to facilitate that very, it was a deep rooted dispute. And because of that, we have the dam still. The people downstream are protected because the spillway was built. We didn't cut down all the trees. The park is beautiful. I was there 2 days ago. So I've done a lot of work already. And so my latest piece of work that I've done is in forestry. So Vancouver Island is it's driven by our forest industry. And our forest industry with respect to tariffs is under attack more than any.
Totally. Yeah.
So when we have, and this is, I'm going to go back to this, we have to have primary, secondary, and tertiary industries. So we not only have to plant the tree, harvest the tree, we have to manufacture the tree, and then we have to build. So Mark Carney's got Build Canada, 500,000 homes. You can't do it without our wood. Vancouver Island has a different fiber species of wood. So our fiber is different. So coastal BC wood is different. It's sought after wood. It's different than the interior, and people seem to forget that. And I don't, this is where I come back to what can I do here? I understand coastal forestry. I understand what it takes. And I know that I can deliver for Nanaimo Ladysmith, because when we create good, long-standing forestry jobs in silviculture and forestry and manufacturing, good, clean jobs, good paying jobs, you can afford to buy a home if you have a good job. And so that's what I can do.
Totally.
However, that's just one element. My deeper understanding is international trade. And that's what we have to strengthen right now. And we have to create our port structures so we actually are facilitating international trade that is not reliant on the US.
Right. No, totally. And you mentioned before, like, the piece that we were missing is we were mostly shipping like raw goods, right? So our lumber, we'd cut the logs and then just sell them off. So part of the process, from my understanding, to fixing that and creating more jobs is we actually mill the lumber ourselves.
Yep.
So would you say that's the direction that the Liberal Party would want to take the
Well, that's where Michelle Corfield is taking you now.
Cool.
Without being elected.
Yeah.
I'm working on this already.
Yeah.
And so that's the part of this that I do this, bringing people together to have tough conversations. I do naturally. I'm not necessarily paid all the time for the work that I do, but I do it because I'm driven to do it.
Totally.
I live here. I want our community to thrive and strive. I want my friends and my friends' kids to have good jobs. And we can't do that if we continue to enable corporations to take their shareholder dividends and not reinvest back into the mills. Okay. Some of that's happened. Nanaimo, Harmac is a great example of a employee owned mill. So the work they do in Harmac is phenomenal. And all of that money stays right here in Nanaimo, Ladysmith. So we have to ensure that we keep those companies strong, and we have to protect them from what's happening down south. So yes, I'll tell you what, I know what's happened in our forest industry. Can we fix it? Absolutely. Is it going to take a little bit of time? Just a little bit. And I'll tell you, there's a bigger problem there is, so when you asked me earlier about why I got into federal politics, our Constitution of Canada is derived at the federal level, right? That's where your constitutional protections are federal protections. Section 35 of the Constitution is the First Nations component of that. And so for me, it's a natural fit to go to that federalist perspective, because even provinces' authorities are derived out of the federal government. So what does that mean? Yes, theoretically, the provinces have healthcare as their mandate, but in reality, it's a derived authority from the federal government. So the only way to fix these things is if actually you're at the federal level trying to shape what's derived down to the provinces,
provincial level, and then municipal eventually too.
So then the municipalities fall under the provinces and the regional districts. So what have you got? tons of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And what does that do? It takes time, effort, and energy,
Yeah.
and slow.
Yeah.
So we can fix that.
Yeah,
Right?
cool. I wanted to ask you a little bit. We're in the beautiful Vancouver Island University right now, and I know you're speaking about provincial mandates, and post-secondary is a provincial mandate, right? But how can the federal government, because we're in a situation with post-secondary across Canada right now where it's not being funded the same way with the international students. What do you think are solutions to that? Do you think the federal government could provide more funding to post-sec? How can we encourage students to come to Canada to pursue education? Like, what direction do you think we need to go with that? Because education for me is so important, right? An educated population is instrumental to our success, in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, having spent 12 years in post-secondary school,
Yeah,
I'm a big supporter of education,
sure,
right?
yeah.
And I got to put a plug in. My mom's a residential school survivor, so education was not something that she thought uh, it. I mean, it was a horrific experience. So I will say that. That's a shout out to the survivors because I come from that, and she still instilled in me to get a good education. Where the federal government can come in, and you'll see in the announcement that that Mark Carney and the new Liberal government will invest in trades and trades training. What was Malaspina School founded on?
Trades.
Trades.
Yep.
Let's go back to our roots. Let's go back to what we're really good at. So trades has expanded more. Our nursing program. I mean, I would love to see a medical facility, like a medical school here, to train doctors.
Yeah.
We need a healthcare tower for that because we need these doctors to be able to go somewhere, and we need them to be able to have the ability to utilize their skills. So we've got some work to do around that. But again, post-sec, that education is a derivative of the federal government. Well, the federal government's responsible for First Nations education. I am certain they can find ways to influence post-secondary, elementary. Like, we have to get back to some roots. If you guys didn't learn about democracy in school, we got to fix that. So I'm 100%, but this school, get back to your roots.
Yeah.
It won't fail you.
Mm.
And it will create good jobs. Like, trades are good jobs.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. They're high paid as well, and we need more trades workers. I know,
And arts.
yeah, arts too. Yeah. Fast forward, and then I guess I wanted to ask you like your thoughts on immigration, and what that looks like under Mark Carney's leadership. Like, I know they've been making some changes. I'm not really too certain on a lot of the policies, but I do know mostly related to post-secondary. But yeah, I want to see your thoughts on that, because for me, immigrants are really important to the success of Canada. But yeah, I'm just not sure. Like, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm an Indigenous person. So I look at immigration in a much different way, right?
Sure.
Canada,
true.
I do. It's just an inherent part of who I am.
Yeah.
I will say this much. So the entire country was settled on immigration. We've built this country based on immigration and good immigration policies. We actually, and that's what we can be proud of. I can be proud of that. I understand because my daughter graduated out of the high school up here at Malaspina, and it's an international high school. So her learnings were about engaging in the international student body every day. It's critically important that we find our way back to supporting our students in a way and making sure that they actually come to school. I think there was a lot of immigration and a lot of schools, a lot of students weren't actually treated well.
Yeah.
I know right here in Nanaimo, we treat our students very well, and we're not leaving them. And we have Tamagawa University Gardens out in Cedar. It's a Japanese university.
Yeah.
So I'm 100% behind it. I just think we need to find different ways. Now, I can't get into the immigration policy. That's above my pay grade.
Okay. No, fair enough.
Right. I wanted to bring it back to we were talking about a little bit about resources and forestry, but I also wanted to talk on the topic because I feel like everybody's been talking about oil and our resources underneath our feet. And so I just wanted to get your opinion on that. Are we wanting to refine more oil in Canada? Are we wanting to open more refineries? What's kind of your vision on how that should go?
So, a national energy corridor is absolutely critical. So, I think, and again, feel like I'm going back in time. I think the biggest mistake Canada made was when we sold off Petro-Canada. So, I go back to like places like Norway that have, they have control of their natural resources, and because of that, their population um, has access to a sovereignty fund. And so I think we have to look at our resources from a sovereign perspective and what that means to us. I also was instrumental in the positive conclusion of Condition 44 of the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which seen the pipeline built because once you start removing the conditions, but I also was able to get the pipeline moved to respect the Sumas people. So we can do this stuff.
Right.
We just have to remember that we cannot forget to be inclusive of our Indigenous population, our First Nations, our Métis, and our Inuit, because we have to give them the respect and knowledge that, yes, you were here. Yes, you do have some role in all of this. And how does that play out? First Nations aren't the barrier to development. First Nations are your partner to development. And I think Mark Carney understands that. And I think that when we get back into power and when I get elected, that we will make massive strides to ensuring that Canada has the sovereignty, the energy sovereignty, be it in critical minerals, be it in oil, be it in even I want to say hydro and water. Like water we're 97% made up of water.
Yeah.
We need to ensure that we protect our water.
For sure.
And that's one of the things that I think we have a lot of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we can utilize it in different ways.
Yeah.
And so I think we're on the right path at the right time. I think we needed to learn some hard lessons. I hate to say this, but out of chaos comes clarity. And, as the phoenix rises, it's one of these things that this is the moment in time that we can correct the dial, right? We can steer the ship in the right way to make good, positive change for the next 50 to 100 years. We cannot build a country based on political cycles of 2 years and 3 years. We have to build a country based on 50-year and 100-year projections so that we ensure that those generations that are coming up have something to call home.
Yeah.
I don't think like a politician. I think like somebody that is that I've been trained from my entire life from my family is what we do today matters in 70 years.
Yeah. No,
So-
it definitely does.
And we have to stop that short-sightedness.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
find there's a lot of
There
short-sighted
is, yeah.
policies.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
we need to fix that.
Yep, totally. I wanted to ask you a little bit. You talked a little bit about how we were kind of like reliant on one trading partner per se, and it was a little bit of a wake up call. And now hopefully we can steer the ship in the right direction. I know Mark Carney's been looking at other potential trading partners. In your mind, like how important is that, and like what can you tell people about how that looks like at the federal level?
Well, I will give you the example of, remember when I talked about Canada was a part of the Commonwealth and then we, separated from the Commonwealth, so to speak, right? We
Yeah.
we became our independent country. Well, those are still our Commonwealth brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So we have naturally a massive family internationally
Yeah.
that have our shared experiences under English common law. So we have a shared opportunity to embrace those brothers and sisters to increase international trade. And I'll take it even a whole different, another wing, even to make it even simpler. Canada has federally legalized cannabis. And because of that federal legalization, it's never allowed to ship to ship to the US because the US has not federally recognized it. So cannabis has never been available for trade with the US. So we just go to our cannabis that's getting exported into international markets. We just pivot. We just pivot.
So same idea as this concept. Oh, interesting.
Just pivot, right? That was never available because you have to be a federally recognized country to be able to trade medical cannabis. So
Yeah,
Right.
makes sense.
So
Yeah,
that's it. Like that's, I think, pretty on the
Mhm.
ground for you guys,
Yeah.
right? You can
Yeah.
understand that.
yeah, no, totally. I think the main barrier for our European partners is how far away it is.
Yeah, that's shipping.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Shipping is easy.
Yeah, fair enough.
International shipping is easy.
Yeah, cool.
So I just wanted to kind of move it forward. I know a big issue for young people, well, everyone in general, housing affordability, being able to buy a house, first-time buyers, second-time buyers, and then also rental prices. So these are all, it feels like the highest it's ever been. How would you respond to something like that?
I sympathize because I have to think back. So I was, I think, 19. I had my RRSPs, and that's what I used for a down payment on a house. Well, you guys can't even get to RRSPs. I don't even know if you guys buy RRSPs anymore. I don't know if that's a thing.
Yes, I do, but
Okay, good.
I don't. Yeah,
Okay,
it's because
well,
my mom.
You could use those to buy your first house.
Right. Okay.
And that was so that was an opportunity. I look at housing prices now, and I look at the things that are creating the drive up, right? We look at the size of houses that are being built. Do we need to have 5,000 square foot homes, or can we, comfortably live in 1,000 square foot house? So we have to, it's size and scale. We have to look at other options, co-op options. We have to look at, townhouse options, like different modes of entry, right? It can't be expected to come out of the gate and buy
Mhm.
the McMansion,
Yeah.
but you can come out of the gate and expect to buy yourself a nice little house or a townhouse that's within reach. And so how do we create that without disrupting the entire, and this is the answer I don't have. Mark Carney's the economist. I'm not. We've got interest rates, we've got high cost of housing. And in Nanaimo, even my daughter struggles with this, is how is she going to get a house? My son was fortunate. At 32, he got into the housing market, and he got in there at the right time.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's about trying to find that healthy balance that you kind of correct it. But a part of that, when I talk to the people in the industry, is regulation, right? Regulation drives costs up too. So when things take too long, you're not. So I think if in the Build Canada, the 500,000 homes, I think you're going to see scale. Scale is going to help bring pricing down, right? When we build and scale, you can drive costs down a little bit. And I think we have to reimagine what it is that we need to live in. And I
Yeah.
think we got away from ourselves. I don't know why we needed 5,000 square foot homes. I still don't.
Yeah.
But that happened. And so that's what we see a lot of, right? Really big houses. And so I think we have to reimagine ourselves and live comfortably within the space. I mean, we live in British Columbia. The outdoors is our backyard.
Yeah.
So that's for buying. Now, what about for renters? I know for myself, I actually have a pretty decent deal going on. I have a basement suite. It has 2 rooms. I pay about just over $1,000, $1,100, and that's pretty good for the city of Nanaimo. But Vancouver, I know it's not your realm, but prices are crazy. Like studio apartments are going for $3,000 a month for some people, and how do we deal with bringing prices down? Are we going to keep prices the same and hope that they don't go up a ton over time? Or are we going to try and bring them down? Do we regulate how much people can charge for rent? How does that work?
I think there needs to be so this is where the province, the federal government, and the cities can come together and try and build affordable homes or affordable accommodations, right? Where you have, say, a federally funded housing build of apartments that you pay based on your affordability, right? A percentage of your income. I know this because Macola Housing does it for some of the housing units and I actually had lived in one when I was young, your guys' age, where you pay a percentage of your income and that's your rent.
Mm.
That makes it affordable.
It does.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes it happen. So as much as I want to disconnect myself from my the work that I've done, it's very connected to today. So I've worked, and I was on the board of Habitat for Humanity, building homes through equity, right? People got home ownership because they put their personal sweat equity in. So
Right.
we can find the models. We've got the models. And I think we just have to find that willingness,
Right.
right? And I believe we will be able to. Like, we have to do better. It should not be a choice between having a roof over your head and food in your tummy. That should not be a choice. If you go to work every day and you work 35 to 40 hours a week, you should be able to have a vehicle, a home, and a full belly, and be able to have some enjoyment, because you should be enjoying some culture of some sort.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's what my life enabled me when I worked as a young kid. And I was able to save and put those RSPs away to be able to buy my first home.
Yeah.
So you deserve that too. And we have to get back to that.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I think the percentage of income thing is very interesting because it's equitable for everyone. Because if you work full time, whatever percentage of that income you pay, I can't remember what the number is, but it was like 30% of your income or
Yeah,
something. It's like
25-30%.
is a good amount to spend on rent. But right now, most people are spending 50, 60, even more sometimes. So
It breaks my heart. I have how old is she? 22-year-old daughter, and her rent is way too high.
Yeah.
no, it's tough.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, but I do really want to touch on earlier you had talked about the doctor shortage, healthcare. I know that's a huge issue for people these days, getting a doctor. I know I lost my doctor, so he kind of went to a different hospital, and then it was just like, oh, you're no longer mine now. Good luck finding your a new doctor. So, how do we manage that problem?
Okay. Like everything, they're not sound bites, and it certainly isn't clickbait. This, right? I'm going to give you something, but it's not going to be easy. This
Okay.
is not an easy solution. So we have a doctor distribution problem. There's a lot of doctors, but they're not distributed well.
Mm,
So we have a lot of doctors that are centered in urban centers across the water
mm,
that have nice walk-in clinics that are churning out patients.
mm,
We have that. So we used to have a remote and rural doctor program in BC that I don't think it happens anymore, where if you went to a remote or rural area, and Parksville, Nanaimo at one point was remote and rural for a couple of years. So when we got a doctor from another province or another country, was kind of what happened. So that filled those doctor spaces. And then we had an influx of doctors from South Africa. Well, South Africa said, "You're not taking our doctors anymore." So that stopped. So we were actually like, doctors were coming quite a bit because they were training them and paying them to be trained. And rightly so, that country should protect their doctors that they were training.
yeah.
So what we have to do in British Columbia and in Canada, because now we have AIT, which allows doctors to work across the country, we have to train more doctors. We have to spend the time, effort, and energy and money to train doctors and create seats for those doctors.
Right.
So
you're
that's
talking like incentives, like there's an incentive for you to move to this rural area,
Yes.
or there's an incentive to be a specialty in this medicine because we need those folks.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And it wasn't a lot, but it was enough to get them to go.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's another thing. And then we have all these hospitalists now in our hospitals. Those are all family doctors, most part.
Yeah.
So they sucked up a whole bunch of family
Yeah.
docs. Right. So
Yeah.
so those are a few things that have happened. So we need to train more doctors. We have to create more medical seats for doctors in Canada and be responsible for our own healthcare. We have to be sovereign over our own healthcare.
Right.
We have to also look to our pharmacists that can do a lot more, which none of my doctor friends are going to like that I say that, but it's true. And we also have to create more nurse practitioners, right? So we can
Yes.
have those nurses are well trained, and they can take on more, right? And then the specialists in Nanaimo, Ladysmith, north of the Malahat, we have almost 500,000 people that have zero access to tertiary care. We don't have a hospital that actually does any advanced medicine. And we should have, because we are actually a designated tertiary care provider, but we don't have those services. So we need to build a hospital tower. Well, that becomes, remember what I said, these 2-year political cycles, it just becomes a political decision that cannot be a political decision to invest in a healthcare tower for Nanaimo Ladysmith, because everybody north of us relies on that.
Yeah.
So and what will that do? If we build a hospital tower and we build a cath lab, we will attract those specialist doctors so that we have access to them over here on Vancouver Island, because we are weather dependent, we are road dependent. How many times does that Malahat close? So we have our own, this is what I mean. What can I bring to Nanaimo Ladysmith? I can bring awareness of our uniqueness about Vancouver Island. We are very unique, but we are not small. We're 500,000 strong north of the Malahat, and we deserve care.
Totally.
We have the right to care. You have a right to a doctor. And how do we find that? We have to shake things up a little bit. Out of chaos comes clarity.
That's true.
Do you think reducing the maybe prices of medical school would be an incentive for doctors to want to even go into that? Because I know for like people that, I know law is a little bit different, but people that want to go into law school, once they come out, they're going to be in so much debt once they come out of that schooling. For doctors, I feel like it would be almost the same.
Well, I got a little different opinion on
Okay.
that. Only because maybe they're already subsidized. Back in the day when I was at the College of Physicians Surgeons, I think it cost $1.2 million to train a doctor. A doctor didn't pay that.
Okay.
Took out several loans, but not that level of loan. Yeah, we can look at a better loan system or student loans. We can figure that out, right? You have to have some skin in the game.
Okay.
Because these are not professions that, as soon as you get that your license to practice,
yeah,
that's your business license.
Right.
You're getting paid. It's a good salary.
Right.
So we have to find some ways to make that happen.
Yeah.
Should we have incentives when they graduate? Maybe we take a percentage off, or you defer interest, or you do things that incentivize doctors that way. But I wouldn't say no free ride in that sense, because you're getting a license to run a business for 30 years. And you're never going to run out of clients. You don't have to look for clients. They're going to come running to you.
Yeah.
Whereas a lawyer has to practice, they have to build a reputation, and they have to actually attract clients.
Totally.
A doctor, you hang your shingle, you're done.
Yeah.
Especially a psychiatrist. Hang your shingle, you've got a client, you're full. Like that's another unfortunate part, is we really do lack that, but because they take about 7,000 patients and that's it.
Right.
No,
and it's less for psychiatrists.
I really appreciate what you said, because Sean and I, one of our good friends, he's a pharmacist. And actually recently it's gotten better, and he can actually do more things like vaccines and different things like that, which takes more pressure off the other medical system. And they don't have to worry about stuff that he knows a lot about and can administer. So I think these type of directions is certainly the way we should go.
That's the Federal Health Act.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay. Good to know. Well, I just wanted to open up the floor to you. And if there's any messages you wanted to get out to the people, you want to tell us anything else?
This is the election of your life. This is the election that you're voting for the sovereignty and protection of Canada. There has been no greater threat to our country than what we see today. So you have to make your vote count. And in this instance, I'm all in. I'm on Team Carney for Team Canada.
All right. Well, thank you. Do you have anything else?
That's great. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah. That was an amazing conversation. So,
are Oilers going to make the playoffs?
They will.
Okay.
Well, hopefully they win the cup this year. I went to a game last year, and it was the second game before they got out, it was the year prior. It was against Vegas Golden Knights. Yeah. It was the game 6 that they lost. But yeah.
Actually, I have one more thing.
Okay.
I need you to make me a promise. If you do get elected, there's this traffic light by my place that only allows about 10 cars through it. And I need that bumped up a little bit. Like I can
where's-
barely. This is on the
where is this
Nanaimo
at?
Parkway. So it's Nanaimo Parkway. It's like the Mo Star Jingle
Yes.
Plot intersection. I can't get through there for the life of me. If
Neither can I.
Yeah.
It
So
backs up traffic all the way to Jingle Pot.
yes, it does.
That
And
traffic is insane.
if you're at that corner, it's gonna be 3 lights before you're through.
I'm with you on that one. But I'm going to say this. The city of Golden wants to be put on BC time, not Alberta time,
Okay.
because when they're accessing Services BC and all of that,
Yeah.
it shuts down at they're on a different
Oh,
time.
yeah.
So they
Yeah.
either arrive late, shut early. So that's my
Right.
big shout out to Golden BC. I'm going to
Okay.
advocate for you to get on Pacific Standard Time.
All
Awesome.
right. Well, thanks again so much, Michelle.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right. That was another episode of Island Time. Thanks for listening. See you next time.